I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota. My mom was born here, so I guess that would make me like second generation. My grandparents are originally from Zacatecas, Mexico. Grew up on the West Side Flats speaking Spanish as my first language. Um, then the Port Authority, this is where the political message comes in. You're going to cut and paste this thing, right? The Port Authority in the 50s decided that that property across the river from downtown St. Paul was not being used to its maximum profitability by the immigrants. That was kind of our gateway into St. Paul in the 20s and 30s. And so in the 50s, they decided to remove all of us. And so it's part of St. Paul's history that one of my aunts, who owned a home on the West Side Flats, refused to move. And she literally was threatened with dump trucks and the St. Paul Police Department, another political shot, that they would remove all of her belongings and bring a earth mover in to crush her house. That was their last threat. At that point, she called the media, and after negotiations with City Hall, she did decide to sell to the city. But she was like the last Latina to stand up against the developers. And so what that meant for me was I moved over to the east side of St. Paul. Immediately, for some reason, right now at this point in my life, I'm like 5 years old. I stopped speaking Spanish and began to speak only English because something inside of me knew that it was not appropriate for me to speak Spanish on the east side of St. Paul. This would have been in, like I say, the early 50s. So my whole dream growing up on the east side of St. Paul was to get one of those good jobs at 3M, the 3M Center that used to be on 7th and Rainey before they left Minnesota, at least the east side of St. Paul. And when I turned 18, I did get one of those good jobs. 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, working in the rubber mills. And I was making good money. New car, had my own home, etc. And my supervisor in the factory tapped me on the shoulder one day and said, "Why don't you go out to the University of Minnesota?" Well, why would I do that? Well, to get a college degree. And nobody had ever, I had never even thought about going to college. Nobody in my family had ever gone to college. This would have been 1972 now, so we're fast-tracking 20 years here. So in 1972, I went out to the University of Minnesota and found an open door, resources. There was this public policy called affirmative action in place. This was an era during the war on poverty where people like me, young people from communities of color, were given an opportunity to get a college education. And there was grants and scholarships that I could earn by having good grades and maintaining my GPA. So I majored in Chicano studies, which was really a blessing, an opportunity for me growing up in Minnesota, assimilated, to really relearn what my culture, what my language, my mother tongue was all about. So I majored in Chicano studies and got a bachelor's degree with a paralegal certificate out of General College. General College is now gone, just like the war on poverty is gone. This culture moves on to other wars. We'll get into that, I hope. So I get this degree, and I go to work down at Our Lady of Guadalupe, back on the west side, close to the West Side Flats where I was born. And I'm working in a legal services office, and the lawyers and law students there are encouraging me to take the LSAT, the law school aptitude test. I had already spent all those years, going to school during the day, being a janitor at 3M at night. Like for 5 years I did that. And I'm tired of classroom. I'm tired of books. but they said, take the test. So I took the test, and with my test score and my GPA, I was always on the dean's list. I got a 3-year scholarship to the University of Minnesota Law School. Now that is sweet, huh?